leadership and gender inclusivity. So I'd like to welcome Andisa Liba as we have a leadership conversation. Joining me, Andisa.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Let's just get right into it. Ooh. So you've enjoyed and built your career in the people management space. How did that come about? Just talk me through your journey in that space.
I think people management kind of found me in my process of becoming.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a PR journalism background. I learned very quickly early on in my career that was not the right fit for me. And I think as I embarked on that process of reflecting what it is that I like, what are my core strengths, in what environment do I thrive in, and inadvertently the answer became human capital. And here I am today.
Doing exactly that.
Doing exactly that.
So what would you say were your personality traits or some of the characters that led you to fall in love with people management?
I think the ability to deal with people, I think the ability to negotiate, I think resolve conflict are really key aspects of what we do. Because as people practitioners, we really are dealing with a myriad of stakeholders, right, in a business. So whether you're doing work with business segments and crafting out a strategy, whether you're dealing with actual people issues and resolving conflict, so your ability to move in between these spaces seamlessly really kind of sets you apart and really puts you in a position where you can really add value to a business.
I couldn't agree with you more. So what exactly did you study then?
So I studied out of school. I studied journalism, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I like the art of writing. In fact, I still do. I'm a content contributor. I mean, I write for a couple of publications.
Okay.
And I think once I did that, I did a bit of PR, and then later on went to do a business administration course, which then led me into the people space.
Yeah. So what does your current role entail as a Chief People Officer?
So I work in a fintech, and really my role is centered around a couple of things. I think there is the core human capital aspect of it, which is a very internal facing part of my job.
Yeah.
I think the crux of my job is really centered around creating space and dialogue for financial consciousness. I think, the unintended consequence of the COVID pandemic is that, it's really challenged people. I think mentally it's challenged, I think, how we engage with money. And so I spend a lot of time dealing with business leaders and HR executives in helping them to rethink mental models around the compensation models that are in place, bringing in something that, that is very supplementary to, I think, the more traditional models. And so I do have a bit of a hybrid role. So I don't think my role as Chief People Officer at Float Pays is quite standard, and dare I use that term very loosely. So it is quite hybrid in that. Over and above that, I do quite a lot of investor relations as an extension of that job.
Of the role, yes, yes. Oh, that's interesting. So we understand that the Gen Zs have entered into the workplace or they are entering. So what impact does this generation have on the employers and the workplace?
I think the Gen Zs have given us an opportunity for us to really rethink people practices. I think for the longest time, we've become comfortable with, I think, doing things in a certain way because that's how they've always been done. And so I think they bring an interesting mix in the sense that I think what their needs are from a people perspective is fundamentally different. I think also they are teaching us that people actually self-actualize in the workplace. And so inadvertently then that forces us to really rethink policies, right? Are the policies we have in the workplace fit for purpose? Do they make sense? Are they agile enough? Do they speak to this new generation of workforce that we're trying to foster? And so I think if anything else, I quite enjoy, having them in the workplace. Albeit they are challenging to have around, but I think it's important because they're forcing us to have the right kind of conversations, which perhaps we've been kind of circumventing around for the longest time.
Yeah. So what you spoke about agility. So how important is agility within the workspace?
Sure, I think now more than ever, and I suppose, you know, it's been a result of COVID.
Yes.
It's been a result of, I think, the complexity of the geopolitical challenges that we've seen in the world, that I think, one, have collapsed the geographical barriers that used to sit, you know, in how we defined what a workplace is.
Looks like.
Right? So, you know, so now I've got the opportunity to hire someone within the same time zone as me, but living in a different country. And so I think there's been a lot more leeway in terms of how we think about these things. And for me, again, it's, you know, it's an opportunity, I think, to actively engage with policymakers. I think in most countries, you've got policymakers that are either have a political background, but not necessarily have a corporate background. And, you know, and these are the individuals that we almost, and loosely I say this, at their mercy in terms of, you know, the labor legislative parts of what we do, and the, I guess, the guardrails that govern how we set up policies.
So how important is organizational culture? Because everything that you spoke about fits into organizational culture. How important is that?
I think it's become so much more important, because I think the workplace has moved away from being the 9 to 5 clock in, clock out. It is an environment where people are looking to have their potential identified, have their potential nurtured and developed. I think have their values that resonate with their own personal values. I think have their ways of how they see the world are reflected in how we do things, not the what, and I think the direction or the strategy that we're going, but in the how, right? So, you know, so what cadence when we have meetings, right? You know, what's the quality of conversation in our meetings? So we've moved away from that style of leadership that says command and control, right? I'm Andy, I'm Chief People Officer, or I'm this, you will listen to me, you will do, you know, what I do. So, you know, it's almost extended itself to this beautiful autonomy that now people have. And so I think organizational culture has moved away from being it's a curated experience by business leaders to, I think, a collaborative effort.
I love that.
You know, in us asking, what would you like to see from a workplace? What quality of experience do you want? And how can we partner together?
So more listening, more engaging, more interactive.
Very much so.
Yes. So what does the future world of work looks like? And what, and as a leader, what should we prepare? How should we prepare for it?
I think
because we've been talking a lot about the future world of work and how COVID has led us to rethink and re-look at our processes, as you've mentioned. But what does that look like, and how can we prepare, or how can businesses prepare for that?
I think at the core of who I am, I highly advocate for conscious leadership. I think we've entered a realm in the world and by extension in the workplace, where as leaders we are challenged to, I think, seek outside of our comfort in, I think, advocating for what people truly need in the workplace, advocating how do we foster talent and how do we grow people.
So in 2006 to 2008, you worked as an executive PA for the current president of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. How was that like? Just talk us through that on a lighter note.
It was an incredible experience. I was very young, I was very naive. I worked at a recruitment agency at the time before I started, who was looking for a PA. They couldn't find a PA for him for, I think, a good 18 months.
And so you were the perfect candidate.
And I put my hand up. I'd never been a PA my entire life. I'd never managed someone's schedule, least of all someone of his level and magnitude. But I think the experience in its entirety really taught me to understand my authenticity as a person. I think for me to redefine my style of leadership, to learn from my environment, to have a teachable spirit. There's something about, I think, being a leader where, you know, you are not dictating things to people, but you're listening. And a lot of that takes compassion, right? It takes compassion, understanding what do people want. And so it was an interesting environment. I mean, if I look back now retrospectively, a lot of us who were, you know, in that employ in those 2 years have gone on to become C-suite executives. So I think if anything else, it's a testament that it was the right, you know, training wheel to, I think, you know, birth a generation of leaders. Talk
about C-suite leaders. What advice would you give to aspiring C-suite leaders to become at that level?
I think treat your career as a jungle gym and have fun while doing it.
I love that. Have fun while doing it.
Have fun while doing it. I think we need to break away from the pressure to quickly become specialists. And I think 20 years ago, the model of leadership and how we groomed and we built up a talent pool, you know, really kind of mirrored that, right? Who were the specialists, who were doing what?
Yeah.
And I think this new style of leadership, or at least the expectation from the world of a leader today, is people who, you know, people who come from multiple disciplines, you know, people who are agile in their thinking, people who are open to new ideas. You know, and you're looking at even like CEOs, right? You know, CEOs that are coming in. A good example is Clicks,
Yeah.
right? You know, the Clicks group in South Africa, they have the ex-HR director now is
Now
the CEO.
become as a CEO, yes.
And she's
which is the first of-
traditionally a lawyer by training. So she's a lawyer who went into HR, who's now a chief executive. And so again, it really speaks to, I think, that need to build multi-disciplines. So I think be open to new experiences, learn different things. And again, I feel like a broken record when I say this, have a teachable spirit.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah, yeah, it is so important. So tell me, how important is leadership to you?
Leadership is very important to me. I don't take for granted the responsibility that comes with me, whether it is
What does
from,
that responsibility look like?
I think that responsibility is my ability to be able to identify human potential
Yeah.
in both humans as well as process, and my courage to develop it. And that courage often speaks to breaking through boundaries, right? Doing things that haven't been done before, showing up for my people when they need me and when they don't need me, and advocating for them. And a lot of that really kind of takes pushing through the normalcy of what is comfort.